Arvin, I know you
Yeah.
spent a ton of time doing this, but inventory, obviously a very important thing. I remember when you and I were first working together, you had created some crazy Excel inventory forecasting and like projections for me. And it took me
Mm-hmm.
literally a month to just try to learn how you were doing your forecasting and projections. So I guess my question, obviously staying in stock, huge, huge deal. Going out of
Mm-hmm.
stock on a listing is like one of the worst possible things that could happen, right? It undo does all of the work that you put into ranking that product on Amazon. So I guess just if you could kind of give us the simple, easy, explain it to a 5-year-old or explain it to Ben, walk through of how you would go about doing inventory projections, that'd be amazing.
Okay, that will be challenging. I'll try my best because I know you're just a 4-year-old, so I'll
five
try to
year old,
explain
I'm
it.
5. Okay.
Oh, I thought you're 3, so I'm actually exaggerating, making it 4. But yeah, so because I'm a financial analyst by profession, so making projection is something that I am really interested since I started working as an accountant. So for me, how do I project the amount of inventory that I need to keep for a certain listing? I always base it on I'm always using the basics or rather the standard way of me doing it. I always have different ways, but if let's say the sale is constant, there's no seasonality. What I will do is I'll just download the sales for the last 3 months, and I will group the sales if to like the sales in the last 90 days, the sales in the last 60 days, and the sales in the last 30 days. Because in each group, there will be like different events that happened, or maybe you launch the several promotions. So I want to consider all of those. And then for the first group, I will get the average daily sales, and then also I will get the average daily sales for the 60 days and 30 days. And then after I get the average daily sales for each group, I will then get the average of these three, because
So the
that would
average of the
be,
averages. So it's like first
yeah,
you're saying, okay, in the last 30 days, I sold 30 units, so one per day. In the last
yeah,
60 days, I sold 70 units, so slightly over one per day. In the last 90 days, I sold 2 units per day, or roughly 2 units per day. And then you average those three daily averages to get kind of a blended, safer average to use for future projections.
yes, that's correct. Because I always wanna make the projection based on the current demand.
So and then so once you have that kind of blended number, like then obviously, this is kind of assuming that you've already been selling, so you have some history to go off of and also some inventory in stock. So let's assume that that's the case and you're now just trying to prepare your how much should I ship in to keep, my replenishment good. My first question is how many days do you normally try to kind of keep in stock? And of course, this is a generalization. It's going to really depend on
Mm-hmm.
a number of factors. But look, the quick version, like, are you always trying to keep 30 days, 60, 100? I don't.
Well, what will I do usually is I will, cause let's say for example, it is my brand and I'm ordering it from one manufacturer. So what I will consider is how many days do they need to actually produce it, and for me to also send it to Amazon warehouses. So if it will take me 60 days, then I will make an initial projection of like that would be the lead time. So I will have to project what will be the lead time demand, and the lead time demand is the product of my average daily sales that I calculated earlier, and then the amount of lead time that my manufacturer need to produce it and for me to ship it to Amazon. And then assuming that it is 60 days, then I will multiply it, like say the average daily sales is 1.5 then times 60 days, then that would be my lead time demand. So that's my baseline, because I want to make sure that my current inventory right now in my own warehouse is above the lead time demand.
Yeah, so you're giving yourself essentially breathing room, so you're
Yeah.
never going to actually be at risk of running out of stock.
Yeah, you don't want to have like too much stock, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't know the demand, or something might happen. So then what will I do then? You have a question?
Well, I was just gonna say that was always the part where I got lost. I'm a very basic. I was like, okay, let's just look at the last week, the last 30 days, the last 60, 90, get that blended average. Okay, at FBA, we have 100 units, and I would try to always have 60 days worth in stock. So I
Mm-hmm.
go and look, okay, we're selling X number per day, or let's just call it, we're selling 10 units a day. We've got 100 units in there. That means I've only got 10 days left of stock. So essentially, I need to restock, you know, essentially 10 times 60 plus that extra breathing room, roughly. However many days I think it's going to take for my warehouse to get checked in and received, which we kind of know with Amazon, you need to really allocate at least 1 to 2 weeks, depending on kind of the season. Right. So that's like the
Yeah.
basic version of inventory forecasting or projections. But well, I guess that's it, the basic restock recommendations in terms of getting it into FBA. And then that's kind of where I was always like, okay, that's enough for me. But then your whole next level is really what is the bread and butter. And that's really, I mean, there's all entire professions around this, right? Like demand planning, inventory, forecasting projections. And there's, you have the lead time for manufacturer. You've got things like seasonality playing into it. You don't want to overstock. You don't want to understock in your warehouses. You don't want to send too much to Amazon because we know Amazon, the fees are just horrible and they always keep going up. So it's
Yeah.
always this kind of like balancing act. And then IPI scores, right? Then when you get into IPI scores, like can you even restock what you need to restock? So anyway,
Yeah.
I took you off track, but continue like you're kind of along your
No, no, no. That's actually a good point. Like, yeah, the IPI or inventory performance score is something that you have to monitor and make sure that you have a really good standing there. But actually, one thing that I noticed, some sellers, not most of them, they just really make projection based on, let's say, for example, their current sales demand, and they want to make sure that in the next 3 months they will have enough inventory. Not realizing that sometimes it will take for their manufacturer to produce it and to send it to you like 4 months after. So yeah, they ended up running out of inventory. So considering my projection earlier, so I was able to already calculate the lead time demand. I will not be happy with that calculation. I will of course consider adding safety stock. Meaning, let's say, for example, your manufacturer, they will not, everything will be not perfect. So they might run out of raw materials to produce your item. They might have, machineries may be broken or some labor issues, and then also for shipping it, like some, especially if it is coming from China, shipping delays from customs being held there. And yeah, there's a lot of things or a lot of factors to consider. So you have to make sure that you're at least adding 30 days worth of safety stock. So whatever happens, you still have enough inventory in your maybe in your warehouse or in Amazon to sell during those days. So yeah, assuming that I have the lead time demand now, and then I also have the safety stock worth 30 days, and you can always increase it by make it 60 days if you want to, or lower it down to 50 days. It's on you. And then so I will add the lead time demand and the safety stock, and that would be my reorder level. So meaning that this is now the time for me to make an
reorder from your
order
manufacturer.
manufacturer to like inform him, okay, I need to reorder this much units, and this is the number of units that I will need. And then your order will always you can always just maybe order the same amount based on the reorder level, but you can maybe ask them more if you want, like 30 6 months more projection, because you don't want to just keep reordering, because shipping it from China will be expensive. So maybe you can just double your order level and then please produce it for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I will always do it, and that's how
Cool.
I will always propose it.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. So, I mean, for me, kind of the last piece I'll say on it is, I have kind of my two things that I always say. You're supposed to outsource the things you hate doing, right? Or like the things you're not good at, unless you really want to learn them and just, torture yourself. But for me, like it's always been, I don't like doing the inventory management, demand planning, and all that stuff. So that's literally the first thing. And the second one, which I know we'll talk about later, because I know you also have a background in accounting, but is all of the bookkeeping, finance stuff. Like I don't like doing that stuff. So that's just kind of my final note is like, these are the types of things that I hear them. I wanted to learn the basics enough to know. I want to know enough to be dangerous, but then I'm going to look for someone like you who knows what they're doing to get them off my plate, So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's true, man. But what I talked about projection right now is just the basic or the standard way of doing it, assuming that
Don't
there's
tell me
no
that, man. I feel like you're
seasonality.
putting me down. You just said, this is so easy. This is
No,
so,
no. Well, but yeah, but because if it depends, let's for example, your product that you're selling is like for like a Halloween product or for like Christmas season product, then you have a different approach there of making projection, because it's
yeah,
not on a monthly basis you will sell the same amount of unit, so you have to
right.
factor that in.
I mean, Halloween
So, but yeah,
costumes, talk about like insane seasonality, right? It's like, Just you literally have like a
Yeah.
1 month period where you spike like crazy, and you don't even know how big that spike might be in a given year. Yeah, I do not envy the person who has that job of planning how many Halloween costumes to keep in stock.
That is true because aside from over having maybe lower or low stack or overstock, the one thing that you have to consider, we talked about earlier, the IPI score, because if you have inventory sitting in the FBA warehouse for more than 6 months, it's already affecting your performance score. And then at the same time, you don't also have to be what do you call this, monitor all of the inventory, making sure that they are not sitting there for more than 12 months because Amazon will charge you long-term storage fee. So that's a strategy there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the piece. I don't want to sound complicated, but
No, you're not. I mean,
projecting
pretty much
inventory is very
just anyone who
complicated.
needs help with this needs to reach out to you for help, because you've
Oh
got a lot of
yeah.
experience doing it. And like I know you've done it for a lot of different brands and built models for them, and they're models that you've tried to explain to me, and I kind of get them, but they're quite complex, but they work really well. Like you know what you're doing with them. So yeah. So anyway, I mean, I think everyone should have someone on their team that knows how to do this stuff, right? It might be easy when you just have one SKU. Like I didn't care about any of this stuff when I was launching my first like private label product. It was just like, hey, I'm gonna order my first 500 units from my manufacturer, ship them in, but then that was because then that was pretty much all I ordered. That product was a flop. But the second you start having to
Yeah.
restock SKUs and then think about adding new products and new product lines, it can get more complex and complicated. So yeah, these are all good things to consider, man. Anything else you want to add?
Well, yeah, I think that's it for now. I mean, as I said, I don't want to sound complicated, but there will be questions like, okay, I want to make a projection for this ASIN, but actually I went out of stock or I ran out of stock for like 2 months. How would you factor that in? So you have to make an estimate how much would you be able to sell if, let's say, you have that much inventory or you have enough inventory to actually sell that ASIN for 2 more months. So yeah, I can continue, but it will be really, really complicated now.
Yeah, let's save that for a different video session. But yeah, I think that's good. Those are just some awesome like kind of guidelines and things to think about. So cool. Thanks, Arvin. Appreciate it.
No problem.